So I'm going to give you the too long didn't watch summary of the entire video, which is a little foreshadowing to one of my shoutouts in the beginning of the actual video. But because the format I used in my video was literally just me explaining Dune Awakening to a friend if I was trying to, convince them to actually pick up the game. So, question everyone wants to know is, should I buy Dune Awakening? And my answer would be yes. If you are into the base building, survival, MMO style type of game, then I can tell you that more than likely you're going to put at least 50 plus hours into the game easy, as long as you're not trying to just rush to the end game. And then even then, you'd probably still be getting a good, 15 plus hours out of it, even if you were just rushing through everything, and then you would still have all the stuff to go back and do. So as far as like the base building side, that's fantastic. No real complaints or issues there for the most part. The survival side of it, the only thing that you're really doing is you're managing, your water, which later on in the game you'll have a big enough water jug that you don't even have to worry about it, unless you're out there in the deep desert, fighting an 8-hour long battle to hold a control point or something like that. The other thing you have to watch out for is a sandworm. That's when you're traveling across the sand, which later on that's kind of not an issue either. Quicksand, and then you have some areas that have the radiation, but even that's not really too bad. The PvE side of it, so the beginning area, and then once you expand out into the rest of like the Haga Basin area, I think that keeps you entertained enough with variation of the NPCs that you end up fighting, as far as their abilities, weaponry, things like that. Is there a whole lot of variation to the things that you're fighting? No. So you will see basically the same humanoid NPCs as you go through the game. So there's not a whole lot of variation there, but between the things that you're fighting, the contracts that you're doing, the main trial quest line that you're following, I think you have enough there, along with your base building, resource gathering, construction of your vehicles, all that stuff, that you should easily be getting your money's worth out of the game. I myself am still progressing, and I just got to the duraluminum stage, so I'm just almost hitting where the next step I'd have to go into the deep desert to farm the materials that I would need if I wanted to do the tier 6 stuff. With that being said, if you're going into this game and expecting, crazy good PvP and, insane fights and all that stuff, right now the game is not at that point. You have the deep desert where 99% of your PvP happens, and to be honest, from what I've watched on YouTube, watched stream-wise, and what I've read, because I haven't done much PvP, really not any PvP yet myself, but it's all, scout thopters and rockets, and then the ground fighting usually devolves into people jumping around with rocket launchers. So yeah, the melee PvP is kind of janky and probably needs some work and some balancing, and the same thing with, the basically sky PvP, the flight sim PvP. But the devs are aware of it, they're working on it, so hopefully improvements come along pretty quick on that, because I know a lot of people, I myself, am really interested in getting into the PvP side of it, but right now it's not really in the best spot. So with that being said, overall, very positive. Like I said, I've put 55-ish hours into the game so far, and I've got a long way to go still. So yes, I would highly recommend it, and you can go through the entire game and pretty much complete everything except for Tier 6 without having to do a single bit of PvP if you're not a PvP person. Even the crashed ships in Haga Basin are PvP zones, except for one in the beginner area, so you can always just go back there to get the stuff that you need. But in all honesty, you get so much stuff just from the NPCs that you kill and chests and that if you do a few runs in there, you're probably good for a while. And to be honest, I've gone into a lot of those crashed ships and I've not come across another person. So even though it's a PvP zone, you're still not really doing a ton of PvP there, and you can literally just use your movement abilities to zone out of it if you're getting chased or whatever that looks like, and then you just go to a different area or come back later. But with that being said, hopefully you guys do watch the rest of the video, but if you were kind of looking for the short summary breakdown, I front-loaded that for you guys, so I would appreciate it if you got this far, just to drop a like and hit that subscribe button, as it does help me out. But enjoy the rest of the video. Peace. So just a quick update before I actually got to post this video. The creative director for Dune Awakening actually posted a response on PvE and PvP, and basically the long and the short of it is that they're going to end up adding basically designated areas in the deep desert that will be flagged for PvE, so partial warfare, and then as you go deeper into the deep desert, that's where you're going to have more of like those rare like schematics and things like that. So it still gives people a reason to, you know, do the whole PvP and fight over stuff, but it's going to allow everyone to basically have access to the T6 materials, so tier 6, and you're not being forced into that PvP situation. So you can actually continue the PvE loop, and you can kind of skirt around the PvP if you want to. Also, they also talked about, you know, the changes coming to the scout ornithopters. They're also going to be kind of doing some rebalancing and stuff to make it to where, you know, there's more focus on like the ground PvP and not just everything in a scout flying around with rockets. And I believe they said they're adding like a new infantry rocket launcher that I think is going to be helping, you know, with taking some of that PvP in the air back down to the ground. So I just wanted to throw that piece in there because they did put out this update the other day. What's going on, YouTube? I know it's been a while since I've put out any kind of newer video. I've just been mainly streaming for the most part. Haven't really been focused on the video creation side, but I am multi-streaming to Twitch and YouTube whenever I am streaming, so be sure to check out the Twitch channel as well. But just wanted to put a little video together today because I'm on PTO, so I've got some extra time. Been playing a lot of Dune Awakening since the, you know, head start into the actual early access launch. I've got about 54 hours into the game right now. Been having a blast, so let me just start off with that. I have really been enjoying the game, and this is just my opinion on Dune Awakening. You know, some people may have some different thoughts, but basically, going from the beginning to almost to endgame, I'm just now hitting kind of the point where I'm about to start having to venture into the deep desert for the tier 6 crafting materials and all that stuff. Been having a really great time. I do want to give a quick shout out to 2 YouTube channels I've been watching that put out some really great information. And the first one's Italian Spartacus, which is, we go here real quick, this guy right here. and the other one is Vash. The reason I like Italian Spartacus is because all of his videos literally start with a too long, did not watch intro to where he kind of gives all of his information front-loaded, so he can get the main gist of the video without having to watch, you know, the entire 10, 15, 20 minute video, whatever it looks like, which is really cool, but he puts out a lot of good information. And then Vash has literally spent a ton of time going through and testing out the different skill trees, what works, what doesn't, what has, you know, some funky stuff going on with it. He's crunched all these different numbers, he's got charts, I mean, he's got all kinds of information that just goes above and beyond what the average person would ever really delve into when going through this stuff. So, for sure, you know, at least give these guys a watch. And then if you do like their content, make sure you give them that little subscription hit there as well. So, with that being said, from my own personal experience with Dune so far, like I said, the whole process from the beginning up to the end game deep desert, I've been having a ton of fun. The base building is really nice, you know, very fluid. The PvE side is fairly good. The survival and crafting side, you know, resource gathering is pretty straightforward. So up to the deep desert, from my experience so far, the game has been great. Obviously, there's been some little glitches and bugs, like sometimes you'll clip into things occasionally, or, you know, you'll be clipped into like a wall or something when you're climbing, or you glitch out and you drop down and stuff like that, but haven't really ran into too many like super game-breaking bugs. I have had a couple crashes where, you know, I've completely gotten kicked out of the game and had to go back in, but I think that had to do with a graphics card update, so I don't think I've crashed since I've done my the latest NVIDIA graphics driver that came out, I think, on like the 17th or whatever it was. But yeah, no, it's been really fun. I can't really speak too much on the PvP side because I haven't, to be honest, really engaged in any PvP. Even the PvP zones, like the crash ships and that I've gone into, I haven't encountered another player. Or if there's been a player, they were kind of going out, I was going in, so really haven't done anything on the PvP side. So, going forward, I would say, as far as your experience on the PvE end of Dune, 100%, especially if you're just a, you know, casual person who's only putting in like a couple hours, maybe a day, or a few hours a week, or whatever that looks like. 100%, I think you're going to be able to get your money's worth out of Dune. Like I said, I'm 54 hours in, and I'm just now hitting the point where I'd have to start kind of going into the deep desert. And really, I'm actually not 100% there yet. I'm just about to cross that threshold. So, and I still have a ton of stuff to do in, what is it? Haga Basin is what it's called, I believe. So, I don't even have like 100% completion on all the areas. I don't have all of the side contracts done. I don't have any of that stuff done. So there's still a lot of time that I could put into doing all of that before I even had to really touch the deep desert. Now, the downside is that I actually do like PvP, but from what I've been seeing and, hearing, both from, Twitch and YouTube and just watching streams and going through some videos and things like that, the ground PvP is kind of wonky because you have so many movement abilities that you can kind of just get out of PvP. At least in like Haga Basin. So if you're in a zone and you just want to escape, in most cases you'd probably be able to do that unless you get ganked by like a bunch of people or you get like stuck in something or glitched or whatever. In the deep desert, it's kind of harder to just like run away completely because you have to exit that zone or go into like that first like little starting area where PvP is disabled. But it's also super huge in the deep desert. So I mean, you could kind of just keep like running and running and running to a certain extent, and it just depends on how far the people are wanting to chase you down. So just between some of like the movement and movement mechanics and some of the abilities and things like that, and the time to kill is really how should I say this? The time to kill is like insanely high in the sense that you take forever to kill somebody sometimes. Like, you can be fighting and fighting and fighting, and basically you almost break off from the PvP from what I'm seeing just because you're tired of the fight, as opposed to because somebody won or lost. It's like people just give up in general and just go their separate ways. The other side of the PvP right now is that most people, especially in the deep desert, they're using the thopters, the scout copters and stuff like that with the rockets for PvP, or if it's ground PvP, people are just shooting the rocket launcher. But most of the PvP seems to be taking place in the sky and not really on the ground. And part of that has to do with, obviously, there's like more sandworms and stuff in the deep desert, so you can't really be on the ground for too long, so you have to find one of those like rock island areas to really PvP, or be on like I guess one of the capture points and whatever. So the PvP, if you're into like the dogfighting type stuff, I guess it's fine. Especially if you're like one of those like flight simulator people who you like that type of stuff, or coming from like Battlefield maybe, where you had your helicopters and jets and all that stuff. So if you're looking for crazy intense ground PvP, you probably will come across it in certain instances, but for the most part, a lot of people are doing PvP, again, from what I've seen and what I've heard. It's in the sky. So if that's going to be a game breaker for you, you don't really care so much about the questing, doing all the side contract stuff, the base creation side, then I would say you may want to wait a little bit until they kind of adjust some things with PvP. But if that's not the only thing that you're concerned with, then I would say it's definitely a great game to pick up and check out, because you are definitely going to get, I would say, even if you're rushing through and trying to get end game as fast as possible, you could still easily put probably about 15 to 20 hours in, if you don't have any knowledge of the game going into it. and that's still going to leave you with a ton of stuff to do even when you reach the end game, because you still have all the contracts in that. But for me, the main thing is that the PvE side has kept me engaged to the point to where it is entertaining enough to where you don't feel burnt out from doing it. They changed the tile set of some of the areas, like they expand some of the little bases that you go into, and then you have the rift later on. So it keeps it to where it's like kind of evolving as you go, so it's not just the same tile sets seeing the same exact thing over and over. Now, the enemies, yes, they're kind of like the same humanoid type enemies that you fight in most of the areas. Yes, they'll have different, you know, cosmetic looks, and they'll have some different weapons and abilities and things like that, but the general type that you fight stays the same. So there's not much of a difference when it comes to fighting those, you know, NPCs. But that wasn't a game breaker for me. Like I said, it still felt interesting enough because of the level of difficulty kind of ramps up a little bit. It's not going to be anything that's, you know, going to be some kind of crazy, insane, you know, fight that you're getting into as you go on, unless you're getting, like, ganged up on by, like, 4 or 5 different NPCs at the same time. And even then, it's fairly easy to, like, work around them. But, I mean, overall, until you hit the deep desert, the game is definitely worth checking out. Now, you can technically get into the deep desert and get materials and stuff and bring them out without engaging in PvP. It's just you're always going to run the risk of, you know, potentially getting hunted down or, you know, things of that nature going into that area. So you just always have to be kind of, you know, aware of your surroundings and what's going on, which the view distance is supposed to, you know, you can set it to ultra and you'd think you'd have like this crazy insane view distance, but I think the number was like 500 meters is what you start to see on the max distance, like, of things loading in. So literally you can be coming into an area and think that you're alone, but then once you hit a certain point, things just like pop in. So you have no idea that there's, you know, 5 or 10 other people there, and then you're kind of like in a not so great position. But let's see how long. Yeah. Anyway, didn't want to go and make like a super crazy long video. I'll probably throw up some like gameplay footage, you know, in the background as I'm talking through some of this stuff, but just a quick recap. Dune Awakening, fun game, great up until the deep desert. Past that, don't really have a whole lot of input because that's the PvP side and haven't, you know, gotten into that side of it yet, but might be kind of once you hit that point from what I'm hearing and seeing. But everything up to that point, tons of stuff to explore, tons of side quests to do. You got your main, you know, story trials that you're going through, that you have 8 of those to complete and that. So for the price, especially on the base game, I think you would definitely get your money's worth, and the game is worth checking out. But I may put a few other videos together on Dune, since I've put a decent amount of time into it so far. But until then, I appreciate y'all for taking the time to watch the video, and if you did enjoy it, just go ahead and hit that like and the subscribe button for me, because that helps me out, and I look forward to doing some more videos in the future. Peace!